Bryce Eddy here. Most of you know I'm an aggressive high energy guy, a 4th degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and between bodybuilding and my high intensity lifting sessions, I still train like I'm 25. You don't need to be a maniac like me to have painful, stiff joints, but if you do, Joint Complex by Nation Health MD can help. I'm a big believer in this stuff. It doesn't matter if you're struggling with aches or stiffness in your knees, hips, or back, Joint Complex contains natural ingredients that promote joint comfort and mobility. It features high-quality turmeric and boswellia to support a healthy inflammatory response. It contains natural eggshell membrane, which promotes strong and supple joint cartilage. Every bottle of Joint Complex is manufactured here in America, so you know you're getting the best quality for your money. Right now, you can try Joint Complex risk-free and save 35% on your order. Go to nationhealthmd.com and enter discount code BRYCE at checkout. That's nationhealthmd.com and discount code BRYCE to get 35% off your order of Joint Complex today. All right, welcome to the Bryce Eddy Show. So, hey, today my guest is important to me because I have been working on getting healthy and getting dialed in. You know, I turned 50 this year, and I am, not as bulletproof as I once thought I was. So I want to make sure I have a great longevity. So I've been searching around for guys that are going to educate me on these topics. And I got, cued in to Jeffrey Adam over at Micronic Silver, and he's joining me today. And we're going to talk some health. We're going to talk some politics. We're going to talk all kinds of things. So Jeff, welcome to the show, brother.
Well, thank you. It's such an honor to be on your show. You said you've done 800 episodes, and I've done about 9 with different interviews, maybe 15. But it's such an honor to meet people like you that are so interested in getting the truth out there. You're not falling into the schematics and schemes of, we're doing this for this reason, this for this reason. It's all about getting the truth out there. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And yeah, that is what we're searching for. And the truth is sometimes nuanced, right? Or the explanations of things are nuanced, right? I've been having to practice that lately with all the nonsense that's going on out there where people are, speaking some truth, but then at the same time, they're, misleading people down all kinds of crazy paths. And, of course, a lot of that's going on with Charlie and, people like Candace Owens, where, she's got some truth, mixed in with some super outlandish, crazy stuff. And, she's attacking people like crazy. And, I think it gets the clicks, but, I want to be thoughtful on the things that I'm talking about. And I don't want to just, grift to get people to watch the show. So, when you were introduced to me, I thought your background was interesting and kind of your path was interesting. And so, give me your kind of bio, give me your path to, how you got to where you are today. And then let's get into some details.
Well, I subscribe to the theology that God will use the foolish to confound the wise. And it should have a picture of me there. I didn't go the traditional sense. I didn't, I didn't graduate high school. I've got ADD and dyslexia. I read upper left to bottom right. So I never finished a test in my life, a written test. Oral test was always 100. And it's amazing how God complements things because he gave me a really good memory. It was almost photographic when I was younger. So, oral tests in school were fine, but teachers didn't want to give them. So I didn't really graduate. I got my GED the day my class graduated and started my own construction company at 17 years old. And I was self-employed for almost 40 years. I had a construction company for, 28 years. And that was 38 years. That was my bread and butter. I was, bought into it 100%. And in 2007, when things got kind of slow, I met a gentleman who was a nuclear biochemical engineer. I took a job installing clear high-speed wireless in Chicago. So I had to go to the tops of these high rises. And the man was a nuclear level biochemical engineer. Said he was one of 8 in the world. He had over 180 patents on medical devices. And it was really interesting. He was just an odd little guy. He'd have his laptop open and he had like 40 windows and doing calculations between them. And it was amazing to watch him. He probably forgot more than I'll ever know in my life. I mean, that's how brilliant this man was. And it was about a 30-day project. And when I was working on that project, it was about 3 weeks in, I had gotten pneumonia. And I'm an asthmatic, so it's always both lungs when I get sick. And it was my 4th time in 6 years getting pneumonia. And I live in the suburbs of Chicago. He was downtown in a penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan. And I would leave at about 6 o'clock at night. I got done about 5, but the ride home, if I left at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, I got home at the same time and I'd spend an hour in traffic. And I just don't like sitting there doing nothing. So I would talk to this man for about an hour every day. And he just opened my eyes to so much with health, with just chemistry, biology, all this stuff. And it was fascinating. And the one day I got sick, I was like, listen, I can't stay and talk to you today. I got to get to the hospital. I got pneumonia. So, and he was, well, how do you know it's pneumonia? I said, well, I've had it 3 times before and it's always both lungs. So, I'm just going to take off and get there. And he pulled out a little bottle of clear liquid. He said, here, take this and your lungs won't hurt you in the morning. And me being the contractor that I am, right? I mean, we're pretty much arrogant and full of stuff and figure we know everything. So I argued with him for about 20 minutes and he grabbed the bottle out of my hand. He said, fine, go to the doctors, let them kill you. Be like everybody else. You're so smart. You know everything. The world's better off without you. And he walked away. And like I said, he was cantankerous. He was about 80 years old at the time. And it was 2007. And about an hour later, he comes up to me and he says, do you know how people die from pneumonia? And me being myself, I'm like, yeah, it affects the lungs. I'm an asthmatic. I know everything. That wasn't the contractor side of me. That was the fool side of me. And he said, that's not what I asked. I said, do you know how people die from pneumonia? And I started thinking about it for a few minutes, seconds or minutes. It seemed like it was 10 minutes. And I said, well, yeah, it affects the lungs. It's, causes phlegm in the lungs. And he's like, you have no idea. And I thought about it. Bernie Mac was one of my favorite comedians. And here's a man with all the money you could ever want, fame, wealth, all this stuff, and he dies from pneumonia. And how does somebody with that much money die from pneumonia? So I said, well, no, I guess I don't, but I guess you're going to tell me. And gosh, this is God shining on me right now. And he said, well, there's 7 medicines that work on pneumonia, and 4 of them are different compilations of the same medicine, like amoxicillin, penicillin, erythromycin, and they become ineffective within 7 years of each other. So by the 3rd year, it's critical. The 4th year, it becomes terminal. And he walked away. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm a contractor, I'm pretty good at math. 4 times in 6 years is probably worse than 4 times in 7 years. So I went up to him and I said, you know what, I'll try it. And he goes, I'm not wasting it on you. He says, you're like everybody, you're so smart, And I was like, well, no, I said, listen, go get a spoon. I said, I'll take it right here in front of you. Because if I take it in front of you, I'll take it at home. And he said, well, you're not even going to ask what it tastes like. I said, I don't care what it tastes like. I know the 2 times I had it, it took 6 weeks of prednisone and Z-Pak for me to feel better and months for me to get my wind back in my lungs, so it was a lot of stress. So he got a spoon, I took it, and he told me how to take it. And I was like, well, what is this stuff? And he's like, I think that would have been the first question you would have asked me before, get a spoon and I'll take it, is what is it? I'm like, well, you seem to know what you're talking about. And he said, well, it's a type of silver, like an ionic silver. I'm like, you mean like metal silver? He goes, metal's a mineral. I'm like, okay. So I took it, went home. That was on a Friday. Saturday morning, I woke up, I had no pain in my lungs. So that was the first step. By Monday, I felt like I didn't have pneumonia at all. And I was like, oh, you need to do something with this. He said, no, you can't do anything with it. He said, they'll kill you. I was like, okay, who's they? He goes, the people. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, the people that run the country, the big pharmaceutical, they don't want this out there. And that opened my eyes. It's like, I mean, I was in ignorance bliss. I didn't know about any of this stuff. I just, okay, the government's good. They do good for the people. Everybody's a good person. And I didn't really stop to think about it as if everybody's a bad person, it's because of God, you're a good person. That's the sin of the flesh. He said, no, you can't do it. And I was like, but it works. He says, it's a type of ionic silver. And I was like, so, we had a conversation for a couple of days, and I went home and I started researching, and people are selling colloidal silver and ionic silver and nano silver. And I went back to him. I said, do you even know what you're talking about? I said, this is all over the place. He's like, yeah, but it's unstable. It's like you. It doesn't get along with anybody. So he always had to insult me whenever he said anything. And I was like, what do you mean unstable? He goes, well, silver's unstable. It reacts with heat, temperature, light, barometric pressure. 2 degrees temperature difference, you have a different product. It's an imperfect product. I was like, yeah, but they've been using it for years. He goes, well, yeah, the Phoenicians used it 3,000 years before Christ to line their water vessels so that water wouldn't stagnate. He goes, it's been around for a long time, but it's never gone anywhere because it's imperfect. I was like, okay, so why don't you stabilize it? And he says, I've been trying for 50 years. It's like you. It doesn't get along with anything. It doesn't want to work well with anything. So So we ended the conversation there. And he showed me how to make it. And I was like, well, why are you making it? He goes, well, I make it different. I was like, what do you mean different? He goes, well, it's just everybody's making it wrong. So he showed me how to make his ionic silver. And it had the drawbacks that other silver has. It's unstable, reacts with light, heat, temperature, but it really worked. Before 1923, colloidal silver was the #1 prescribed antibiotic in the world. And Rockefeller tried to patent it, and he couldn't patent it because it's part of our monetary system and it's all natural. So you can't patent something that's all natural. And of course, they don't want you to patent money because then the government wouldn't be able to make their trillions of dollars off of us.
Yeah.
And so, I said, okay. So I started making the ionic silver and selling it to friends and family. And it was like a miracle in a bottle. I mean, it worked really good, but you had to take it 7-8 times a day for it to be really effective. And then we started researching, God was telling me I have to do this. I have to do this. Started getting, scripture started coming to mind. Life is in the blood, research blood. So my partner, Michelle, and I, we started researching blood and found out how the oxygen molecules in the hemoglobin were responsible for, the energy in the cell through the redox cycle of the mitochondria. So I talked to, called him back and I said, well, so how does the silver work? And he explained to me how it works. I said, okay. And Michelle had taken a trip to Israel and I was at home and the first life is in the blood I couldn't get it out of my head. So I hopped on the computer, started researching hemoglobin and blood, and my phone rings and it's Michelle from Israel. She goes, Jeff, I'm at the Wailing Wall. Nobody's around me. And I could swear to God, somebody said, life is in the blood, research blood. She goes, and there's nobody around me. So I'm like, I just hopped on the computer to do this. So God's telling us something. So we did that. And then the next year it was the same exact scenario with ozone. And she was back in Israel and the same scenario. I was like, I literally am firing up the computer right now to do it. So we did that. We called this gentleman back and said, hey, we think we figured out how to stabilize silver. And he's like, how is that? And I said, using ozone. He's like, don't waste my time. He goes, I told you, I'm smarter than you. I've been trying to do this for 50 years. What makes you think you can do it? And I was like, just a different perspective. He's like, no, you're wasting your time. So I said, okay, well, I'm not wasting God's time. So, started doing a research weekend. And about 6 months later, he calls me back and he says, I think I figured out how to stabilize silver. And I said, how's that? And he said, using ozone. And I was like, okay, I know you're like older than dirt. But I had a conversation with you a couple months ago about ozone, and he interrupted me. He said, no, he said, you had no idea what ozone was. You might as well said peanut butter because you didn't know. I was like, okay, that's fine. I said, so if it'll work, let's do it. And he's like, well, see, that's the problem with people like you. You just want to go off half-cocked. You just want to run out and do stuff. He says, it's a theory. He says, and then you have to rationalize the theory. You have to validate the theory. You have to prove this is going to be expensive, and I don't have that kind of money. Do you? And I said, well, I got some money. I do pretty well with construction. What are you talking about? And he goes, $7,000. So I just pumped myself up. I wrote a check for $10,000, hopped in my car, probably going way too fast to the city, knocked on his door, said, here. And I stuck a check for $10,000 in front of his face. And he looks at the check and he looks at me and he looks at the check and he looks at me and goes, are you dumb or hard of hearing? And now in my mind, I'm going, did you say $70,000? I said, you said 7,000, right? And he turns the check around. He goes, does this look like $7,000? Do you have money to burn? You're going to be a horrible businessman.
You couldn't win with that guy.
Oh my God. I mean, he had no sense of humor whatsoever. And I said, well, you know what? I said, it's only $3,000. If you need to buy some equipment, you need to buy something, buy it. I said, if you want to pay yourself, pay yourself. He's like, well, now that's just ridiculous. He goes, I could go spend $3,000 on gumballs. And I said, well, that would explain your wooden teeth now, wouldn't it? And he literally just shut the door on me. And so I left. And about a couple months later, he said, okay, it'll work. I was like, great. So we can start making it. He goes, no, it's a theory. We have to validate it. I went through this 7 times with him. And then finally one day he says, okay, it'll work. I said, great, let's do it. He goes, well, we have a problem. I was like, what now? How much? He goes, no. He goes, the equipment to do what we need to do doesn't exist. And he goes, I can't create it. I said, well, no, I'm a general contractor. I said, I've done many things people said it can't be done. So I invented the process and the machinery that restructures the ion, creating ozone in itself, stabilizing itself. So I came up with the only silver in the world that is organically stabilized without adding chemicals. And it stays in the body for 8 to 10 hours instead of 6 to 8 minutes like colloidal, ionic, and nano silver. Those silvers are destroyed by stomach acid. So they're sublingual delivery only, absorbed under the tongue. And when you swallow them, they hit the stomach acid, creating silver chloride, destroying it. Mine doesn't do that. So mine is an ingested and a sublingual delivery system. It works outside the cell versus inside the cell. The Micronic Silver doesn't destroy the good bacteria, where the colloidal onic and nano silver destroys all bacteria. So we ended up with, I think, is one of the best products in the world being the Micronic Silver. And God's blessed us all the way.
Bryce, Eddy here. Many of you know me for encouraging self-reliance, knowing why you believe what you believe, and helping people prepare for the challenges of our time. But today I want to talk to you about protecting your household's future, starting with your finances. I believe that America is coming into a golden age of opportunity. Right now, gold has surged past $4,000 an ounce, a historic record. And the biggest names on Wall Street are predicting even more growth into 2025 and 2026, with price targets climbing as high as $6,000. And on top of that, we see global instability and nations working together to undermine America's influence, including information warfare, economic weaponry, political subversion, psychological operations, and social manipulation. That's why I've partnered with American Independence Gold. They're veteran owned and they give back, donating proceeds to Tunnel to Towers in honor of our first responders and heroes. And here's the opportunity for my listeners and supporters. You can receive up to $10,000 in free gold and silver credited to your account with qualifying purchases. That's real, physical gold and silver, tangible assets that can hold in your hands to defend your wealth. Don't wait until it's too late. Go to bryceeddygold.com. That's bryceeddygold.com, or call 833-324-4653. Again, that's 833-324-GOLD. Take action today. Protect your family and strengthen your future, because freedom and security aren't handed to us. They're preserved by the choices we make. This is Bryce Eddy. Don't just prepare for tomorrow. Own a piece of it.
So you sent me a bunch of different products, and I've been using some of them. And I mean, I'd love to go through it, because the thing that I'm like the most is the nasal spray. But you just told me, okay, this one, you rattled it off the first time, like, okay, this is for this, this is for this, this is for this. Let's go through. Okay, if you were going to say, hey, here in your everyday routine, here's what you want to do, and kind of narrow it down for folks. We've got a link and a code that we're going to put here in the show, and if they use my name, Bryce, they'll get some benefits and a discount from that. But I'm in, because you had me kind of the last time pretty convinced. But let's talk about each one of the things, and really kind of put the cookies down on the bottom shelf for people, so they understand what the process is and why it's useful for us. But let's hit some of those high notes.
Yeah. One of the things I would like to impress to everybody: getting on your show is not easy. You're very, very concerned with the people you're dealing with and the products being and doing what everybody says they're going to do. So you were very clear with me that I'm not coming on your show until you get the products, you can try the products. And I'm sure you did research on the products with a lot of the people we know in the industry. Yep. To make sure that I'm who I say I am and the products do what we say that they do.
Well, also, truly, because, I did a couple of physical coaching calls with some folks that were recommending supplements, and it was like, okay, here's 30 that I want you to buy. And that's not what people are going to do. Number one, you're throwing a lot of money away. There's a lot of things that people give you that doesn't work. There's a lot of things that are just noise. Literally, you're putting it down the toilet, and it's just a little bit too much. So I've had in terms of like some of the muscle building stuff that I'm doing. I've got an episode that's going to be released this next week with a very well known bodybuilder that been years writing articles in the supplement industry and things like that. And I told him, look, I want the very few, like, do not live without these kind of things. If you want to, build muscle for longevity, if you want to do this, I want the very few things that you can't live without, because I'm not going to be taking, 35 things every day. And I like, kind of what you talked about, that, because, we gotta do the things that are the healing things, not the maybe this is good, but the things that this is good. This is the standard, and here's why. So So yeah, let's hit a couple of these products.
Yeah, if you want to hold them up, I can tell you exactly what they do. And the first one, I guess, is the Micronic Silver dietary supplement.
All right, here we go.
So that is our flagship product. That's your mainstay of health. So that one there is a great preventative. So it works with your immune system, building your immune system back to what it got intended it to be. So you can take that daily. It's a teaspoon a day. So a bottle like that is basically a 48-day supply. Um, I've I've been taking it since 2012, I think, since I don't get sick anymore. Which that's the best way
And this is
to
like first thing in the morning.
yeah, first thing or morning at night. It does give you energy because when the way that the micronic silver works versus colloidal, ionic, or nano, when those get into a cell, a bacteria, fungus, or virus, they stay dead inside the cell. The micronic silver steals the electron from the cells, rupturing the cell wall, killing it on contact. And then the micronic silver takes it in. A micron is a form of an ion, which means missing electrons. It can't hang on to them. And it ejects the electrons into the blood, giving you energy. So the electrons are your battery for life into the mitochondria. So some people like to take it in the morning because it gives them energy, and at night it may keep them awake. But yeah, that one, if you're getting a sore throat, you're not feeling good. If you get food poisoning, you can take 2 teaspoons of that, and in 4 minutes, diarrhea, throwing up, and stomach pain stops.
Wow.
It's amazing how it works. So that's kind of our mainstay for general health. And it'll also help because when you start building your immune system, the old saying, you are what you eat, is 100% wrong. You are what you absorb. And most people have absorption issues. That's why you're talking about all the vitamins, and bodybuilder stuff they take. There's a reason their pee is bright yellow. Is because their body's not absorbing things. So you're spending good money and peeing it out. And so the Micronic Silver is a really good thing to take to start building your immune system, get you back to being healthy, not getting sick. It can be used for different things. Like I said, cold, flu, that kind of stuff. It tends to work really well, helping the immune system reset itself. And from there, we went on to the Micronic Silver nasal spray, your favorite right now. That's actually how we started growing. So we applied for emergency patent testing during the pandemic. If you nebulized with the dietary supplement, by your second inhalation, you were coughing up thick phlegm. And they refused to allow it to be patent tested, as they did with many other things at work, because constitutionally, if there's a therapeutic that works, you cannot create a vaccine. So they had to shoot everything down so that they could create their narrative to vaccinate the 99% to protect the 1%.
They would have lost their emergency authorizations otherwise.
Yeah. So when they wouldn't do that, we started. We had some customers that were asking about it, and we said, well, viruses incubate in the nasal passages. So the first thing that I would do is I'd spray the Micronic Silver dietary supplement or the nasal spray into the nasal passages. And then we had, remember they were doing the swabbing to travel. They do a swab and test you. Well, people started using it as a cheat code, and 5 minutes before they'd spray it in their nose, and we never had one person get back to us testing positive when they did that. So that kind of got us into the forefront with what we're doing with the natural health. Sherry Tenpenny got on board with us, and she's been a good friend and, just a really good person, and introduced me to everybody. And that's how we started growing. So it was those 2 products, and they're the same formula. So if you buy the nasal spray, you can use the dietary supplement as a refill, but you can also spray that sprayer because it's a really strong spray when you spray it. So it gets really into the sinuses good. But if you get a sore throat, they start at the top of the back of the throat. So you can actually spray that in your mouth and coat the top of the back of the throat, unlike a liquid, which runs down your tongue and it doesn't really do anything. So the sore throats tend to go away immediately. And it's got a clear cap on it, and that spray will work upside down. So you can actually spray it in there and use it for drops in the ears.
Oh, interesting. Okay, now you've got a bunch of topical stuff that you gave me as well. A healing spray, and then this
the
Silvazone, and then
the Liazone.
Liazone.
Yeah, let's go to the Liazone first.
Okay.
So the Liazone, because of what we learned with making the silver with ozone, we were able to create the Liazone, which is 100% ozone trapped in a Liaropa oil. Most companies that have oils that are infused with ozone, once you get above 63%, the ozone destroys the oil. We actually came up with a way to trap the ozone 100% in oil. So if you open that up, that smells what you smell for lightning strike. That's ozone being created in the atmosphere. That reduces 80% of pain and inflammation in 8 minutes. Pulled muscles, like I tore my rotator cuff. Matter of fact, I've got a torn rotator cuff right now. At night is the worst time for that because you roll over at night and you're just in agony. So you put that on, it literally reduces 80% of pain and inflammation on soft tissue in 8 minutes. Works on bee stings, bug bites, sunburns, wounds. It purifies the wound. It takes soothes the nerves, reducing inflammation. So I've had people that twisted their ankle, had broken bones with swelling. They put it on, and about 80% of the swelling's going away in about 8 to 10 minutes. And anytime you have an injury, 80% of the pain is the swelling of the tissue around the nerve, putting pressure on the nerve, then you have pain. When you take the inflammation away, it relaxes, the pressure on the nerve goes away, and the pain goes away. But it also increases circulation because, again, when you have that inflammation on there, you're not getting the blood flow to start healing. So when you take that swollen tissue off the capillaries, blood flow returns. So you start healing from the moment you put it on.
Now, how does that compare to? I mean, a lot of people are pushing like CBD based things, and that's been a big industry too. How does that compare? What are the differences?
Well, CBD takes a different point of origin with it. So, and we have a few CBD products that we've actually integrated with it. That works in the cannabinoid system. So a lot of the CBD that's out there is like, you look at the gummies and stuff, they're Delta 9s. Those Delta 8s are for the body, Delta 9s are for the mind. The Delta 9s make you not care about being in pain. The Delta 8s work in the cannabinoid system on the nicotine receptors, which are responsible for inflammation and pain at the cellular level. So those work a little bit different. They don't work as much on the inflammation as it does on the receptors for sending their signal to pain.
Yeah, I've been concerned about inflammation lately, and I've been doing a bunch of anti-inflammatory things. I mean, all kinds of different things, and it works. And you definitely feel a pretty massive reduction in pain. So with how I beat myself up, with how aggressive I am with my workouts and everything else. Yeah, I haven't tried this one yet, but I'm eager to.
Yeah, we've had people, like I had one guy that twisted his ankle, and he had to knot like it looked like a half a baseball out of his ankle. And he put that on his ankle, and within 20 minutes later, the knot was almost gone. Now,
Wow.
he still had the pain, some of the pain. You still had, he couldn't really put a lot of weight on it and stuff. But when you take that swelling away, you allow the circulation to start, you're going to heal a lot faster. I mean, we have a dentist that uses that, a couple dentists that use that. When they pull out a tooth, they pack that in the vacated cavity, and they never get dry socket. So there is a lot of benefits of it. Like I said, bee stings, bug bites. If you get sprayed with a skunk, it'll, after you wash, you can put it on there. It'll help destroy the odor from the skunk because it's an oil and the skunk is an oil. So they tend to combat each other for dominance in that space.
All right. And then because I'm a workout freak, you sent me this one, and you said this is going to reduce my lactic acid buildup. So that I'm gonna be testing that one pretty seriously.
Yeah, that's a unique product in itself. So I always thought bodybuilders were the best possible shape. You look at the physiques, and these guys are just like gods. It's like, wow. I would love to have a body like that, but I don't have the time and the dedication to do it. And let's face it, when I go to a gym, I want to go to sleep. It's like going shopping. I don't like going shopping for clothes because right away I want to crawl on a bench and go to sleep. I just don't want to be there. I will actually work out of my home more than I'll work out at a gym. But so when we came out with that product, a friend of mine had a supplement company, says, we want something different. What do you have for bodybuilders? And I was like, well, we noticed that this product here shuts off the production of lactic acid at the hypothalamus in the brain. So your body's not, creating it, where a lot of people in the bodybuilding space, they're taking neurobinders that are stopping the tissue from absorbing the lactic acid. So it's dumping raw lactic acid in the liver and the kidneys. Now, when you're in your 20s, that's fine. It looks great. You work out, you can stay that way. Well, when you're in your 50s, that turns to fat and liquid. And then you're going to have all the unhealthy stuff. I know so many bodybuilders now that got into it, I'm 60 years old, that are my age, that they're in really bad health. So in their 20s and 30s, they listen, they were dating the girls I always wanted to date, but now they're in poor shape. So that product there is to help the longevity. If you're not creating the lactic acid, and a little bit of lactic acid is good, too much is bad.
If you're not doing enough to recover, you're borrowing from the future if you're, beating the heck out of yourself. So
yeah, and that product's interesting in the aspect, how when you do the end of your reps, it gets harder and harder at each rep. And the bodybuilders were always talking about muscle failure for building maximum muscle. Well, I realized that's not muscle failure. That's hydraulic pressure. So there's more fluid in there. Your muscles just can't move. And because I was a contractor, I understand hydraulic pressure. I ran bobcats and had to repair hoses and stuff like that. There's just no room because you're filling it up with liquid. It's just like when you get hurt and your leg swells up. You can't move it because there's swelling. There's just no room for the muscle to work. So they found out when they take that, they're actually working out and suddenly they just stop. They can't lift anymore. Now you've got muscle failure. Now you've got where you're going to build the most. And because it's a version of the Micronic Silver that's elevated, you get the immunal boost with it. You get the repairing, which is real interesting. So there was a book called The Body Electric by Dr. Robert Beck. And he was doing a program through the federal government, the Department of Defense, on regrowing limbs, and he was using silver. And he found out that in the presence of the right kind of silver, it corrects cellular malfunction, and the cells, actually, the production of the fibroblast cells, which are your precursor to stem cells, and they need them to build structure. You actually have 10 times as many fibroblast cells, and they replicate 10 times faster. So the Micronic MicroPro helps promote the production of the fibroblast cells. So your body's not even creating the lactic acid because it's already telling the body to heal itself. So the lactic acid is a keynote that tells the muscles to repair themselves or the tissue to repair themselves. Because the MicroPro does that, you don't even need to take it. And we have marathon runners that say, listen, I took it yesterday. I ran like 11 miles more today. And 3 hours later, I felt like I could run another marathon. So it's a recovery accelerator. It doesn't take you above your natural level, but it allows you to increase your level, your highest level naturally, and stay there and run there more optimized.
All right. Well, I'm in on that one. Yeah, we'll give it a shot. That one I can test pretty easy.
Oh, yeah. You'll usually the next day, people are like, this is great. We had a gentleman, we launched at the Arnold Bodybuilding Classic with that 3 years ago, or 2 years. Yeah, 3 years ago. And a gentleman, he was a Navy SEAL. And him and his partner, they've been working out for 10 years. And these guys look fantastic. They're in their mid-30s, and they're workout warriors. I mean, I forgot how many thousands of reps they do a day. And him and his partner do the same workout routine. So he took the MicroPro, and his partner didn't. And literally an hour and a half after the workout, he came back to the Arnold Classic. He went up to our booth. He goes, okay, what is this stuff? He goes, my partner's laying in his bed right now, like I usually do all day after I work out like this, not wanting to move, just exhausted. He goes, I feel like I could lift again. He goes, and we usually do like 20 reps of this or 4 sets of 20. He goes, I did an extra set of 20 where he couldn't. He said, and I actually did like 10 pounds heavier than I normally did for that set.
We're pretty sensitive. Yeah, we're pretty sensitive to our body, know our numbers, and it can vary, but yeah, no, it's something that you can measure pretty quickly. So I'll report back on that one.
Yeah, and it floods the body with oxygen. So oxygen, what makes athletes, and this is what most people don't know, what makes athletes are this fact here. So the average molecule of hemoglobin carries 8 oxygen a molecule and burns it at a steady rate. Athletes, carry 6 oxygen molecules. Athletes can carry 8 and 10, but they process it faster. So like when you see these athletes, football players getting cramps, because they run through the oxygen faster, they've burned off all the oxygen. The cramping is when they start burning nitrogen in the blood instead of oxygen. And that's why you get the cramping. So the athletes, when they take this, aren't getting cramping. And because there's more oxygen, Dr. Jeffrey Shute, who trains kids going from high school to college to pro and Olympic athletes, he started doing oxygen testing where he'd put the oxygen meters on his kids before the games. He'd have them take the MicroPro and test them after. None of his kids had cramping. His team was faster. They didn't, or the recovery is faster. So basketball's a pretty fast moving game. They'd pull a guy out, they'd go back in, and now he's acting like his first 10 minutes of his basketball. And then he oxygen tested him after their event, and they actually had more oxygen in blood than they did after or before the game, before they took the MicroPro.
Wow. All right. So where can we get this stuff? I know I've got a link that I'm going to post, but how do we follow you guys? How do we pay attention to what you're doing and all the products that you have coming out?
Well, great. Well, if micronicsilver.com, you can see the name above me. The reason I keep it there is because there's many different ways to spell Micronic, but it's micronicsilver.com. If you put in micronicsilver.net, it'll still go to our website. You can see our products there. You can hear see the testimonies. We have 70, 80 testimonies of different things. These podcasts like this are really important for us to educate people because we don't have a lot of information as far as the products go on our website because we don't want to get shut down.
Yeah.
or be deplatformed and stuff like that. So you can always email us. It's admin@micronicsilver.net. We have it on our website. And if you want a usage guide, if you want a catalog, we'll be more than happy to send it to you. But we have to keep that private as a private request because we want to help as many people as we can.
Yeah, well, thank you. And you gave my audience the code Bryce, BRYCE at
Yep.
checkout. They can put that code in there for a discount off the products, and I appreciate that. And I'm eager to give it a shot and report back to you on how I feel.
Oh yeah, I look forward to it. One of the nice things about having our products is they do exactly what we say they do, and they don't do the things that we say they won't do. And so our customers are just very gracious with us. They love the products. We have an 89% customer reorder rate of our products of at least 3 times. And so we can pretty much with confidence say our next conversation, you're going to be like, wow, this stuff is amazing. And I would ask that anybody that tries the product, if they can go on their social medias and like us. We're a micro company right now, but we do want to reach everybody. So if you can put us on your Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, any of the stuff like us, we would appreciate it. Obviously, we're going to go on and we're going to put your link on our show or on our website too. And thank you. And one of the things that God told me when we did this, so we do pray over our product. It's the power of his word that's in it that we believe is why it works the way it does. I'm not that intelligent, so I couldn't have done it on my own. We know that. But God told me that at the end of times, his saints are going to shine like a bright beacon and speak with a thunderous voice.
Amen.
And you guys, like you, are the thunderous voice that are going to allow us to get the truth out there. And that's what we're really interested in is helping people. The average customer's order of our product is less than an office visit to the doctor, and they don't end up going to a doctor.
Yeah, amen, amen. Well, I appreciate that, and looking forward to trying. I appreciate your generosity and giving us code. And again, I'm going to report back and keep this stuff rolling. To God be the glory, and we are out.
Weird subject here, but most of us who've lived a little life out there or live with beloved pets accumulate parasites. If you're struggling with gas, bloating, loose stools, or constipation, or if you often feel tired and weak, there's a good chance you might have a parasite. According to the CDC, millions of Americans are infected, but most of us are unaware. That's why folks are loving Paratarget by Nature's Blast. Paratarget contains a unique blend of natural ingredients that help kick those parasites to the curb. People who use it have reported better digestion and improved energy levels. Just one scoop mixed into your favorite room temperature or cold drink every day does the trick. You'll even get delicious recipes for a tropical smoothie and refreshing citrus sunrise mocktail. Try Paratarget for yourself and save 35% on your order today. Go to Nature's Blast store and enter discount code Bryce at checkout. That's Nature's Blast store to get 35% off of Paratarget. Enter Bryce, BRYCE, at checkout.